Yeah, we're live, or we're recording.
All righty. Thank you, Ellen. So my name is Cynthia Palmer, and this is the January 2025 meeting of the Bicycle Advisory Committee. We welcome everybody, including members of the Pedestrian Advisory Committee and anyone else who's here. And to start off, we can go around and introduce ourselves. And if everyone can answer a question, that would help lead us into our main discussion. And our question is, share one or more of your top priority goals for the county's new transportation plan. This will serve as an initial brainstorm for our homework assignment from the Arlington's Transportation Future Advisory Committee. So we'll go around, we'll say our names, we'll say one or two goals each. So my name is Cynthia, as I said, and my goals, as Mike Hanna mentioned, my goals are a little bit specific, but I will mention them real briefly. One is to make intersections safe for people, including Langston and Lynn, Shirlington Road, and many others. Non-armored travelers need dedicated crossing times, and some of Arlington's crosswalks are terrifying. So my vote is to make intersection safety one of the goals. I know it will get shot down, but that's my priority. And my second is to turn around the systemic entitlement of vehicular modes of travel in Arlington. Um, this involves things like prioritizing the clearing of bike lanes in wintertime and removing the beg buttons, narrowing the roads in places, investing in traffic signals that recognize bikes, removing the stop signs from the trails, improving sidewalks, improving bus service, discouraging monster-sized vehicles, all these things that shift the power relationships and the vulnerability, so that everything is not stacked against pedestrians and people on bikes. All right, neither of those will make it into the new MTP, but those are my priorities, and let's hear from others. We can go through the list of who's here. And starting with the number that ends with 15, is that Dana? No, that's not
Yeah, it
Dana.
is.
It is. Okay.
No, it is, Dana.
I think you're on
Yeah.
twice, Dana.
No, I'm on the computer, but yeah, I was having trouble with my laptop, so I phoned in. Yeah. Getting enforcement, actually integrating enforcement into the plan. Every problem many of the problems we face in Arlington, enforcement could be a strategy if we could only do enforcement, but it's not. But our leadership, the county leadership, don't prioritize it, and the police department doesn't prioritize it either. And the other one would be responsive and timely issue resolution. A RAP system that actually works.
Love both of those. Collier is next.
Hi, everyone. I literally just
I think we lost you, Collier. All right, should we go on? Why don't we go on, and then when Collier gets back on, then he can take a turn. I see Elwin's name.
Hey everyone, this is Elwin Gonzalez. I'm a transportation planner with DES, and I serve as the staff liaison to the BAC. And I will abstain from suggesting things for the MTP update since I'm working on it as well with, Kristen and Brian.
Alrighty. Eric Goodman.
Hi, I'm Eric Goodman. I live in the Bluemont neighborhood, and I am also the liaison to the Pedestrian Advisory Committee and currently acting chair of the Pedestrian Advisory Committee. So I guess I have some priorities that are more pedestrian oriented, but as far as bicycle oriented, I think I would note that really bike lanes. I think that I commute often in bike lanes and I find that they're blocked, and I think that's a real issue for me. I'd like to see a better solutions for curb space management and also better solutions for either enforcing or engineering the roads so bike lanes are not blocked and often used for I guess uh, either people parking in them or commercial vehicles that like to idle in them. So I'd say addressing those areas are strong priority for me. Thanks.
Thank you, Eric. I see that Collier is back. Collier, do you want to try again?
I'm hoping my computer won't crash again, but assuming you can hear me.
Yes.
Okay. The two things that come to mind for the MTP is the county in the past has really leaned on the word balanced too much, and they treat all modes equally, and because of that, they can't accommodate everyone in the sort of our limited right of way, and too many times I've seen the bike lanes are removed or not even proposed because there's not enough room for them, or they say you can go a block over, and so I think we truly establish sort of a hierarchy of modes, with the top being walking, but then biking being near the top. That would be one thing I like to see in the plan. And the other thing is it's focusing on intersections. I still think we don't do a good job of designing intersections. Some of our brand new ones that we've been implemented still are problematic. There's too many conflicts between modes. Even our newest protected intersection, there's some challenges there. So I know it's not, the MTP is not focusing on actually engineering design, but at least it needs to have give some policy or have some guidance on how we treat the different modes when we have crossing traffic. So, thank you.
Thank you. That was worth the wait. Could not agree more. That was great. And next we have Mike Hanna, who may have thought about this a little bit.
I have, but and I'll get into this when I get to my presentation. I think we need to think about the goals, of which there are going to be 4, 5, or maybe 6 in the overall plan, but then how those goals are described is probably the more powerful piece that we really need to focus on. And so one is sustainability. There's going to be something in there that's around sustainability, but I'd like to see that more specifically defined as reducing the amount of energy input in our transportation system, period. Now, the way that gets implemented is by encouraging, pedestrians, biking, and mass transportation. But we really should focus on what is really going to reduce the energy the most. And it may not be trying to electrify the entire car fleet, as the county's putting a lot of energy into now. It's more getting people out of those cars and onto bikes, and maybe they're e-bikes or something else. So just reducing energy input as an overall system. I've got some others, but anyway, I'll leave time for others to talk.
Thank you. Megan is next.
Apologies, I joined late. Can you remind me of the question? I was on another meeting. Sorry.
No worries. So if you could say who you are and mention one or two of your personal goals for the new MTP, the new transportation plan.
Okay, so I'm Megan Jones. Apologies for joining late. I live in the Ashton Heights area, and I have been on the board of Phoenix Bikes for several years now. So I'm always kind of looking at them with a lens, and also have a background in getting more unrepresented on bikes and things like that. So anything that can be done to get youth, families, safe passages to schools, trails, and other alternative places to ride, like mountain biking and things like that. So, and if Jillian's on the call, whatever she said, and Randy.
Excellent. All right. Kevin O'Brien.
Sure. I think I caught the prompt. I too joined late. Kevin O'Brien, Virginia organizer with the Washington Area Bicyclists Association, and friend of the BAC. I think I'm most interested in seeing just solving the conundrum about just like curb space. This is a high demand, the most precious of our resources. And I think, the MTP, the update, really just, it needs to grapple with how do we use this limited space in a way that is consistent, in a way that is inclusive, and that really does serve all residents, not just those who can drive everywhere, because we know that leaves out a lot of people. So yeah, just a real way to sort of grapple with those competing demands.
Thank you. And Leslie.
Hi, I'm Leslie Tierstein. I'm just a utility and commuting bicyclist. Been doing it for years. Bicycled a lot in Europe, so I have some basis for comparison. I have a dream that bicycling is just considered an equally valid transportation mode as motorists. And when we plan bicycles, we think of stuff like sight lines and lighting so that you can see where you're going at night. Some of the trails are ridiculously dark, just to get equal weight so that it's a 24-hour option for traveling.
Love it. All right. Let's see. Andrew.
Hey, good evening. Andrew Martin, Arlington Heights. Two things that I would like to see in the update, one more realistic than the other. First would be just street narrowing. So when possible, moving that curb in, increases safety, provides room for street trees, kind of, if you're doing concrete work, it even saves on, asphalt and kind of maintenance budget. So that would be kind of my number one and more realistic, assuming you can get past anything fire department related. But the more fun one would just be streetcars everywhere. Bring back Columbia Pike, put one on Lee, put one on Langston Boulevard, and so on.
Great. Let's see. Mary.
There we go. I couldn't come off mute. So I'm Mary Delau, and I'm with Bike and Walk Arlington, and I live in Bluemont. And my goals would be to improve connectivity, both in bike infrastructure and also with sidewalks. I think there are a lot of places in Arlington that still don't have sidewalks or have limited sidewalks. And the same thing with bike lanes. There are often places where you're comfortable in a lane for a while, and then you'll lose it. And that creates a barrier for people who are less confident. So I would love to see that. And I would also really love a priority area around schools and looking at schools specifically for bike and walk infrastructure in those neighborhoods and filling in the gaps in the areas where there isn't any or it's not adequate.
Thank you. I often wonder about this question of priority around schools, because ultimately there are kids living in all of Arlington, presumably, so the whole county has to be priority. Like, I don't know quite how to make it safe for all the kids without doing something county-wide. Maybe that's another conversation, and I'm sorry to divert, but I've often wondered, because I want, I mean, just like you say, I want it to be safe for the kids.
Well, I mean, even what I've seen is just at Washington Liberty. That's the one I notice the most because that's where my son bikes to school, but he can take the Custis Trail and then get to school from a side street. But I see kids coming all the time on Washington Boulevard on the sidewalk because there's nowhere to ride but the sidewalk, which is fine, but it would be wonderful if there were space just for them. So I agree with you. But yet, like if it's not there right near your school, then no matter how good it is elsewhere, it still will be a disincentive. But you're right, it's needed everywhere too.
Yeah. Well, and I would happily start right around the schools and move out and ultimately cover the whole everything. All right. Let's see. Noreen.
Hi, everybody. I'm Noreen Hannigan. I live in Dominion Hills, which is just above Bon Air. Anyway, I guess the goal that I would want to focus on the most would be the equity goal. I mean, I live in a neighborhood where I'm close to the trails and I'm close to use, a lot of the bike lanes and stuff around here. But when you go down to South Arlington, there's no metro and stuff down there. I just feel like we're lucky here. I can walk or ride to a metro pretty easily and get around anywhere, but folks that live elsewhere in the county can't get around that easily. And this one's not a goal per se. I guess it would be under services, but I would like to see more bike racks outside of stores and shops and things. So many times I've run an errand and you get there and it's like, okay, where do I lock up? You're looking around for signposts and things like any old thing you can grab. A bench, you could tie up to a bench or something, but there's just not enough racks in a lot of places.
Yeah, even like Virginia Hospital Center, unless you're like next to the new building on the far one side, like there's no rack at the main entrance. And not everybody comes in an ambulance or in a car. All right, next we have Pam.
Hi, you can hear me okay?
Yes.
Oh, good. Okay, I'm Pam Van Hine. I'm the PAC recording secretary, and I live in Aurora Highlands, a few blocks away from Dana. I'm also the PAC representative on the advisory group for the Arlington Transportation Future. So like Mike, I've been pondering this for about a month. And we are meeting on, we being the PAC are meeting on Wednesday. So I have drafted 6 goals for us. I will mention 3 of them. Mine are all very broad, which I think is what they're looking for. It's not just we're talking about bikes or walking. It's the goals apply to everything in transportation. So my first one is safe, always. And so many things fall under that, enforcement, schools, infrastructure design, vision zero, changing behavior, vehicle design, all those things are safety. Two of mine that are a little bit unusual. One is, and these are phrases, one is intuitive, fun, and desirable. And this is the infrastructure, network systems, and wayfinding. And my examples for intuitive are comparing the hawk light versus the RFB. You press a button for a hawk light, nothing happens. And you finally notice that there is a separate pedestrian light on the other side of the street. And it just says, don't walk. And you have no idea what's going to change. Drivers aren't sure how it works, and it's very frustrating, and people just tend to walk and drivers drive through it. Whereas the RRFB, you press the button and immediately you get this flashing light. You can see it, drivers can see it, and most of the time, if it's set up right, it works. So we need more stuff like that. We need less verbiage and more illustrations. We have a huge population. I mean, there's like 100 languages spoken in Arlington. A lot of our population cannot read English. Uh, they don't understand it, and the signs aren't really useful to them. And there are people with disabilities where the signs are so verbose, it's overwhelming and they can't deal with it. So keep it simple, keep it straight, but make all the signs make sense, have real directions on them, etc. So that's one of the ones. The other one is comprehensive, connected, and integrated. No, I'm sorry. I want transparent, engaged, empowering, and evidence-based. This is how we want the county transportation staff to do transportation policies and implement projects. So the whole process should be transparent. We want them to engage the community, but also engage us. We want to be empowered by the process, and we want everything evidence-based. And then I have three other things. That's it.
Great. I am so glad that you are part of this effort. Um, let's see, Randy.
Hi, I'm Randy Swart. I live in Barcroft neighborhood. I am a former member of the BAC. My main problem is the danger and crashes in our current system. Vision Zero was the most exciting planning concept that I ever heard of over decades. And the unfortunate thing is that we can't have the system we really need by fixing intersections and lowering speed limits. It's just not going to get us there. So I think we have to redesign our system, taking a safe systems approach. It's going to be a long and painful experience. It is, in my estimation, the only way to get us to where we all want to be. So what I would like to see this update of the Master Transportation Plan, or whatever they're going to call it, Arlington's Future, I would like to see it be an interim plan for some fixed number of years while we develop a new transportation system based on a safe systems approach. That's not a modest proposal. It's shaking everything up and doing everything over, and it will take years, obviously. And so I think we need to start by making a plan that we want to get there. And we don't have that now. So what we're looking at now is another big toolbox full of Band-Aids that will improve things. It won't fix what needs fixing. It will not get us to Vision Zero. So I would propose that this be an interim plan and that we work toward redesigning our transportation system under a safe systems approach. And if you don't know what a safe systems approach is, I don't know what back alley you've been living in, but Google it. Transportation safe systems approach. It's a different way of planning a transportation system. If you've ridden a bicycle in the Netherlands, you have some idea of the sort of thing you need. which is separate facilities for everybody that work together. But we're not going to have that unless we throw all the balls up in the air and do a complete redesign. Thank you.
Thank you. That was very, very helpful. Next up, Aaron.
All right. A few other people here. I'm also sitting in on the Master Transportation Planning meetings, representing the Neighborhood Complete Streets Commission. So I've thought about it a bit too. I don't have so many exciting things to share like Pam, but what I was kind of looking at as what I would put forward, kind of some general ideas, one of them being universal, designed for all ages, abilities, modes of transportation, right? Just get that basic idea and then get the details to flesh it out. And then another one I put in, I just use the word disruptive, that I think whatever we do should be to encourage mode shifting, make it harder for people to stay in their cars and easier for people to choose something else. Deal with some of a lot of issues being raised by people here, dealing with the curbs, dealing with the, slip lanes, all the different things that make it, the intersections, all the things that make it less safe for pedestrians, make enough things different that it's harder to stay in your cars. And then one of the other big ones I was looking at is quality, building and maintaining a system that's going to give everybody a quality experience, which is tough. But like we started the meeting talking about plowing the bike lanes and cleaning the bike lanes, dealing with the potholes, making sure that we are not just prioritizing volume of cars, but a good safe experience for everybody. So, couple other common things that we see in a lot of these, safety, sustainability, some kind of a green platform to it. I think we're going to see that. I don't think there's any way Arlington's not going to have some kind of a carbon zero future in there some way, which I think we're all obviously in favor of. So that's me.
Thank you. And Steve Offit.
Steve had mentioned in the chat before that he was in another meeting and so couldn't.
Okay. So we'll skip Steve.
Yeah.
Has everybody else had a chance to weigh in? I think so. And if that's the case, then maybe Mike Hanna can take over and do a little presentation and lead the discussion on this new program.
Sure. Shall I just share screens with my slides, or Erwin, did you incorporate them into a county deck or anything? I guess I'll just share. Give me a second. Okay. So I wanted to start off with a little, well, first of all, let me know you can see it. Okay. I just want to start off with a little bit of background and summary of the meeting we had in December. And, Pam, Aaron, anybody else that's engaged, if you want to jump in and either flesh out what I'm saying or correct it, whichever is appropriate. Just reminding everybody the last homework assignment we had, which were these 4 questions about the existing plan and our feelings about the plan. I'm not going to go into it. Each group shared their responses to these questions. The take home though was I was impressed that the vast majority of the groups came back with something. Part of their answer was increasing pedestrian and bicycle usage and safety. So we have a lot of allies, I guess is my point. And a lot of folks, even though that's not maybe their main mission as it is for us, are still very much engaged that a lot of the solutions, whether it be safety or sustainability or equity, those solutions pass through increased bike and ped usage. So good news on that front. Now, of course, the devil's in the detail. The other thing that was presented, and I'm going to do a quick summary of some of the results they got. You know, the staff did a few months of questionnaire and open houses and other ways of getting community input, and they presented some of that information. I've shortened it down here quite a bit. I can send a link out later with the full presentation if you want to look through it in more detail. But some of the take homes to this and you know, they got pretty good responses. You know, in this case, they had 2,300 responses of this particular question: how do people travel now? The majority of people walk at least some in Arlington. That's good to hear. Not clear whether some of them are just walking to their car, but you know, they are walking. Then, you know, also a large majority still drive, which is a little more discouraging. And then Metro Rail and bus. You know, Arlington was built around a transportation system, so that makes sense. Ride sharing, and then you've got to get down to, you know, 34%, which is still actually a relatively high number, do report using bike and scooters now. So that's sort of where we're starting at this point. Then the question is, how would you like to be doing more? Once again, walking and public transportation kind of were the main ones that people would like to do more of, but biking came in not too far distant past beyond those. And so that also was somewhat encouraging. If you had 41% of the respondents of 22,000 people said, hey, they'd like to be able to bike and use other alternative mobility more. So there definitely is a avenue out there for this. And then some of the factors they said that were influencing their daily transportation choices, predictable and reliable, right? And I think that gets a little bit to some of the issues we have with, well, the bike lane's there and then it's not there and somebody's parked in it and you can't count on it. Fastest trip, not surprising. And then feeling safe from traffic. Once again, a lot of the issues we deal with. And then traveling in ways that allows for flexibility. They then presented the more detailed, and I think once you get into this, you notice that those were the first three. The fifth one, a close fifth, was being active on my trip, walking and biking as exercises, and then traveling in ways that have a minimal impact on the environment. So, you know, those are still relatively high numbers. Spend least money as well as ones that kind of lend themselves towards pedestrian and biking. Opportunities for the future, you know, what are the most important opportunities? Once again, mass transit and pedestrian solutions tended to be the highest priorities. But once again, in the 30s, there's still a sizable number of people that would like to see making biking more safe and more comfortable. And then once again, if you look at more of the details, you get, you know, transit and walking and the first three, and then eliminating traffic fatalities and injuries, then bike safety, trees, and you get back down here to equity. So, and then a smaller percentage for things like capital bike share. So bottom line is, you know, a relatively large number of people do bike or claim that they bike, and a large number of people want to be able to bike more. You know, it's a false choice to say, oh, is it public transportation versus biking? But there is a sizable population that wants to see more mass transit, more or safer and more reliable mass transit, safer pedestrian and safer and more reliable biking facilities. Quick take home on that. A little bit on open houses. And these are slides that I appreciate Pam put together, but I'm just sort of leveraging them. So there was, they had an open house around safety and vision zero. Once again, pedestrian and bike infrastructure, desire for enhanced pedestrian crossings. That comes back to the intersection issues that we've come up with, signals and signage and signals. So the community is kind of backing us up on a lot of these things. In terms of the bike network, the pedestrian network itself, right? Desire for safety, concerns around safety around schools and parks, missing and incomplete sidewalks, narrow and obstructed sidewalks, lighting visibilities, all things we've been bringing up. And then from a biking perspective, many bicyclists do not feel safe on county streets, right? That's the message back to the county staff, and desiring safety enhancements, including more protected lanes, more direct and continuous bike routes, so better connected networks, bike parking, and then infrastructure for a greater variety. So these are all things, really back up kind of the things we're talking about. I'm going to kind of skip through some of these. And let's see, what I was going to do. Okay. Now we're down to this network, and I appreciate Cynthia starting off this way because it really helps us kind of discuss this in more detail. So I thought I'd start with just reminding everybody, these are the goals in the current transportation plan. Goal 1, provide high quality transportation services. Goal 2, move more people without more traffic. And the details behind this are the ones that really are the ones we're most interested in, right? More travel choices that reduce single occupancy vehicles. And they talk about TDM, telecommunications, and travel that switches to transit, carpooling, walking, and bicycling. So it's there in our current plan in the details of goal 2. And then safety, equity, effectively and efficiently, which it really has to do with cost control and making sure we're using our dollars wisely, and then environmental sustainability. They also, and I sent this out in an email, they presented some other plans, and I had sent out links to these if you wanted to really dig into them from some other localities about what their main goals were. So DC, safety, equity, mobility. Now they put project delivery in. They identified that as a significant issue, I guess, in terms of actually getting projects built. Save, good, repair, and then sustainability. Alexandria, accessibility, connected, so connectivity, convenient, equitable, safe, and sustainable. I also noted they managed to get their goals to spell out access. So I guess if we want extra points, we can try to come up with a nice acronym. San Francisco had equity, sustainability, accountability and engagement, economic viability, and then safety and livability. Minneapolis, climate, safety, equity, prosperity, interesting, mobility, and then active partnerships. So when I looked at this, and I looked at our current goals, right? Much of what we've discussed, in the last few minutes comes under these goals, right? I mean, we're just better defining, moving more people without more traffic. Well, that means coming up with safer, better, more reliable ways to have pedestrians and bicyclists, right? Promoting safety, same thing, especially around intersections. And, we might even want to add that, that when we talk about safety, one of the primary places we need to look is the mode interaction around intersections. Establishing equity, which means providing safe facilities that are really accessible to all, and then advancing environmental sustainability. As I said earlier, getting that down to as close to zero energy usage as possible. The way to do that, we have to get people out of their cars, on their bikes, or on their feet. So I'm going to open up a little bit and get a sense from folks about whether they whether they feel like we should be looking to provide entirely new goals or just provide better specific definitions around the kind of the goals we have: safety, equity, sustainability, and reducing traffic. But I define those in a way that are more focused on some of the cycling solutions. I did want to mention that I sent out an email back in September. Randy and Dave Goodman responded to it, and they're basically doing this kind of same thing, looking at not so much the goal itself, but the details behind the goals, the ways of achieving it. So I'm just going to open it up a little bit and get people's thoughts.
So I'll start. Just that I'm really nervous that we'll end up with band-aid approaches or window dressing, and that, I mean, we need something that sort of changes the power hierarchy and that, doesn't just reduce the speed limit or whatever, but actually puts, I mean, like someone said to, Aaron said, like, puts walking at the top of the hierarchy, and then bikes, not too far below. I mean, I really would love to see something that's transformative. And as Randy mentioned with the systems approach, it's we may not, achieve our goals without something pretty radical. So I'll leave it at that.
I'll go ahead and add in that I think being radical is a totally fine approach for our groups to take as we bring it back to the transportation planning committee. They might not be the final goals, but if we, say, let's flip this whole thing upside down, as Randy's suggesting, let's completely make cars the minority case here instead of everybody else being the minority case, and just talk about what's possible with that, and then let them claw back at that and say, no, we have to do a small scale approach instead. We have to nibble at the edges. But I think why not throw it all out there?
Dana?
Yeah, I think that I really like the idea. We should probably try to figure out how to steal that project delivery aspect from the district. Because the problem is we don't do things holistically in Arlington. We come up with a Vision Zero that doesn't include that doesn't really include enforcement. So if we have project delivery, making it, so after we come up with the plan, making it work is essential. And so we need to drag that in and make that part of it, because short of that, we're just going to come up with another plan. And when it doesn't work because the engineering is crappy or the enforcement's crappy or the education's crappy, to use the Vision Zero concepts, everybody will say, oh, well, we tried. So, it needs to be more than something we display on a bookshelf. And in that respect, the project delivery is kind of an essential component.
Mm-hmm. Eric?
Yeah, I think if you look at goal 3, which says promote safety, I think safety promotion itself is not enough. I think it really should be like design for safety and accessibility. And I don't think that that's really in the goal. So I would say it really has to take a step further and actually say, to take actions for safety and accessibility. And I think that goes back to, again, looking at what both Kevin and I had mentioned, with curb space as well as with intersections.
Oh, Kevin?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I just reiterating a lot of the same points, just about, it really it is the devil's in the details. But I don't necessarily think it has to get into like what do the paragraphs say behind even just that secondary sentence, right? Like, um, promote safety. Okay, what's the 15 words after that that actually capture what we think about safety and how. Same thing with like equity, right? Establish equity. That's not a goal. That's that doesn't tell you very much about like what is the county's stance on on equity. And it's right, I think it's we want to get at the we need our transportation system to contemplate and facilitate travel by all manner of folks throughout the county by different means and XYZ, right? So I think there is like a middle ground between like keeping it short and streamlined. Obviously we want it to be something that you can have on a one pager and be able to maybe it has a nice acronym, but really I think the it's that second step, that sort of subtitle that's going to be really important. And then of course there will be the actual plan written out that's going to be there. But yeah, I think like what we have in like goal 2 is sort of, it gets a little bit more at that. Okay, move more people without more traffic. Okay, what does that mean? Well, we're actually saying it here, providing more travel choices, reduce XYZ. So I think that's sort of like what I would be striving for all of these concepts, that to try to give just a little bit more detail there.
Collier?
Yeah, following up on some of the things I've already been stated, some of these things feel like actions rather than sort of looking at things holistically. Like I'm looking for something like, establish networks, or develop and implement networks for the different modes, because that's not necessarily a goal here. I mean, it's saying the closest we get is with goal 2, is moving more people without more traffic. It sort of alludes to that, but if we don't establish networks, a plan, then we won't ever get to where we need to be. Especially, I mean, and again, thinking again what I think Randy was saying, we need to, think about things holistically. The network needs to be so we can have a cohesive network, that's direct, attractive, safe, comfortable, all those things. And I think it's assumed, but I don't think it's not stated, and I think it should be stated.
But any other thoughts from folks?
I would just add that some of the current goals are kind of useless. I mean, like goal number 1, provide high quality transportation services. Like, what's the alternative? Like, provide like poor quality transportation services? That would never be a goal for anything. So, or goal 5, manage effectively and efficiently. Like, as written, they're kind of a waste of words and paper. and so we just have to, like, once we write ours, like, make sure that they sort of, they serve that critical at juncture, or really push the envelope, because of course the goal is going to be, make it good, make it high quality and excellent. I mean, that's useless.
Right. So I'm just sort of doodling here while we're talking. And I kind of agree to some extent with Aaron that, we're not trying to necessarily pen the exact goals that are going to go in the plan, because this is going to be a point, and they will be, by the time we get to the point, the goals themselves are going to be generic, because they're going to say, well, yeah, those are specific implementation points under the goals you're talking about. The goals have to kind of fit everything. So that being said, we don't necessarily have to go forward with ones that meet that criteria. So I'm hearing one goal, which is basically changing the transportation paradigm to prioritize pedestrian travel and bicycle and other modes of alternative transportation above automobile travel. Second one being, Dana said project delivery, but I think one that a goal of the plan has to be that there's an implementation strategy, including funding and other items that will actually make these things come forward. Good engineering, good delivery, good execution of the plan. And then taking more positive action for safety and accessibility, not as a general goal, but as something we move on relatively quickly, with an emphasis on intersections and curb spaces, since that's really where the mode interactions happen. So I'm thinking those three. Pam, you have your hand up?
Yeah, the one thing that several people have said that I really like, I think would be a great goal, is transformative. That could apply to everything, and it's just a fabulous idea. So I hope we get that in there somewhere.
Right. Yeah, I think that's kind of it. In that first goal I mentioned, where we're changing the paradigm, it's a transformative thing. I'll use that. I'm not 100% sure. Randy's point about a safe systems approach, which I admit I'm ignorant about, and I will definitely go to the link and take a look. Is there something around that? I mean, what's nice about that is it is very specific, if aspirational. Is there something around that we want to do, or do folks kind of need to read up on a little bit?
I think it's a point under safety. It should be part of Vision Zero, but we haven't really followed it yet. But yeah, it is a key basic design for transportation safety. So it's a good thing to mention.
Okay.
I don't think that Arlington is going to do a second effort. I mean, I feel like we need to do the safe systems approach now, or it won't get done. I mean, just as like Langston Lynn, we keep saying it's so scary. Like, I mean, it was scary for me just last week, but the response is no, we've already fixed Langston Lynn. And so I don't think Arlington will take another crack at this for a number of years. So I think we need to be transformative and systemic, and I mean, throw all the big stuff at them now.
I don't see anything in the goals that really acknowledges the importance of Vision Zero and how its existence has changed the goals that we're trying to achieve. And I think maybe that should be the first goal. Safety ought to be right up there at the top, not providing high quality transportation services.
Well taken. Eric, you got another thought?
Well, I just, as you said, you and both I guess, are a little bit ignorant on the safe systems approach. I'd like to read up on it and understand a little bit more. But I'll ask Randy, are there any experts that you would point to on this, I guess, this system that would be helpful for understanding this more?
It seems to me that the director of the NTSB has done a very insightful presentation on this that is probably on the web. I will look for it when I get through with this and try to post a link to that. But basically, it's a disruptive concept. Basically, you're saying that Band-Aids won't get us there. And until you say that, you're just going to plow ahead with what we've got now, with complaints about the county not being responsive to fixing things, with all the other problems with this intersection and that intersection. And then you get on Arl now and you see one of Dave Stetter's videos that shows somebody in a car doing something totally stupid. And as long as you permit that, you're going to have people getting killed. So if you want to feel safe on the streets, you've got to make some disruptive changes. And that won't happen anytime soon in Arlington. I have no illusions about that. So that was why I proposed that this plan should be seen as an interim getting to a more disruptive concept and a safer system. Let me go look for that presentation that I liked so much.
Thank you, Randy.
I don't know if you're referring to Chair Hamidy's presentation from the safety rally over down on the mall. She is unbelievably phenomenal. I respect her so much for her work in disaster safety as well as on road safety. I was told that presentation was not recorded. I have been trying to get hold of it without any luck, but maybe you saw a different presentation from Chair Hamady.
I must have, and I think probably she's the one I'm thinking of. And it was a long time ago.
Okay. So what would be the path forward now? Mike, you're in the hot seat. Do you?
So yeah, what I'm thinking is I've been like I said, I've been doodling here with what folks have been saying. Let me take some time and see if I can formulate this into. Right now, I've got 3 goals that have come out of this. One around safety that includes the safe systems approach. I sort of agree. Let's ask for it. Let them tell us they can't do it, and that it needs to be in a later plan. That the plan using that should be somewhat disruptive of our current system, in that it rethinks the entire system. It doesn't make incremental or band-aid approaches, and that it really seeks to implement the goals of Vision Zero. So that's sort of one goal. I need to put that into something that's cohesive. The second is that and it's related, but not exactly. That one was around safety, but that there's a transformative change around how we prioritize and look at our transportation system that specifically prioritizes pedestrian safety and access as the primary goal of our transportation system, with other non-motorized, I'll call them, transportation alternatives as a close second, followed up by mass transit, and that single occupancy vehicles should be specifically noted as the least desirable and the I don't want to say least accommodated necessarily, I think I had to say it, of the plan. And then the third is really around project delivery, which I actually kind of like, Dana, that the one of the goals of the plan is that it has the funding, engineering, and follow through built in to ensure that the goals of the plan are actually implemented. I also had somewhere in there I need to pull the continuous networking in. I think that's probably under that transformative change goal. But I'm sort of working around those three. So my goal would be, my personal goal would be that I would put together 3, maybe 4 goals and get them back out to the group for you all to look at, comment on. I think that I saw the last email. I don't think we owe them, and Pam and Aaron, maybe you saw this. Do we owe this to them prior to the meeting, or are we just supposed to come with these to the next meeting?
I think they said the morning of is enough.
Okay.
I think if we can do it earlier, that's probably respectful of giving them more time to digest it.
Okay. Okay. So yeah, so we've got, I'd like to have it done by next week. That'll give us a little bit of time. So look for an email from me in the next few days where I've kind of put something together as a straw horse around these, give everyone a chance to comment, think about it. Maybe if you want to do your own wordsmithing, that'd be appreciated as well. And then I'll have something ready for the committee.
And remind us, when is your committee meeting?
It's the end of the month. It's the 28th, I think. Yeah, it's the 28th.
Is it on your next slide?
Oh, it is. I'm not sure.
No.
That date. No, it's not. But I do want to talk about my next slide. So, well, any other thoughts on the goals? Does anyone have a better thought than the plan I just laid out? I'll take silence as agreement. The other thing I wanted to bring up, I reached out to the staff and tried to get, they haven't been very forthcoming with the details of the schedule. They've got this sort of generalized schedule. I think part of it is they're trying to, walk and chew gum at the same time with this thing, which is that there's a lot going on. And anyway, I understand why they don't have a lot of specifics, but I asked them specifically when they think they're going to be starting to talk about actual networks and mapping of solutions. And they said probably in the fall of 25. So, and just to remind everybody, with this new plan, the bike element goes away. So included in that was our network map. And when I brought that up, staff said, yeah, that's actually the goal, because they've got all these separate maps and they don't correlate between the different modes of transportation and the different goals. They want one map. And so that way on that map, they can work out where there's conflicts, what's going to get prioritized in a certain area or on a certain route. So I think it behooves us to develop a position for the BAC of what are the absolutely critical networks that we want to see. If you look at the bike element plan right now, it's got lots of different bike facilities that we'd like to see, existing ones, but also new ones, kind of all over the place. It doesn't say absolutely this, these 5 north-south routes absolutely have to be continuous networks, and these 6 east-west routes, or this route from Boston to Crystal City has to be continuous. Whatever that is, it doesn't really lay it out that way. So what I'd like to do is see if we can call together some kind of a subcommittee to help take the bike element map and define what are the things that we as the BAC are going to fall on our sword over. If we get nothing else, what are those most critical network connected routes, and also what does that mean? What's our lowest common denominator in terms of a safe connected route? Does that mean that it's got to be all made up either of trails and completely protected bike lanes? Would bike lanes count as part of it? With sharrows, I hate to bring it up, but we want to be clear that sharrows don't count. That just paint on the pavement doesn't count. That it needs to be completely protected. What does protected mean? All those things that are devils in the details. I think I'd like to get a subcommittee together to kind of define the BAC's position so that by mid to late summer, we've got that position really well laid out, and then we can go to the however they're going to do this mapping process with staff, and say these are our non-negotiables. So what I'd like to do is maybe get a group together, maybe starting in March, to start a process. So Cynthia, I don't know what our process is for identifying a subcommittee or how that gets done, but I'm just sort of putting out the ask right now, and then I think anybody that's interested maybe can reach out, and maybe by next month we start really identifying who's willing to roll up their sleeves and do this.
I would just say that I hope that we can be inclusive. I know that the county is way behind, like years behind, in inviting a broader membership. That we have many people who should be members, who ought to be members, who deserve more than anything to be members, and yet have not received that invitation from the county, in part because we have been told that we cannot finalize a new charter until after the MTP process, and that charter process has been going for years already, like 2.5 years. So there's been a lot of delay, but this is a long way of saying I would hope that that subcommittee can involve non-members who in my heart are members and deserve as much recognition as anyone else.
Sure, I would. Yeah, I mean, there's nothing official about this subcommittee, right? It's going to make it's an avenue to make a recommendation. The BAC will ultimately be the one to say, yeah, that's the map we want to go forward with. Eric, you had some thoughts?
Yeah, I think if I remember, even with the charter we've been working with and our existing charter, I think that we can form subcommittees, and I don't think they have to be just exclusively members.
So that being said, how do we identify those folks? Is who has a list, or who has some knowledge of who else should we should be reaching out? Does staff have some thoughts, or either Bike Arlington or Phoenix Bikes, or who should we reach out to?
I mean, you're saying like for suggestions?
Yeah, for who are these? Who are some people who'd have some really good insights on what networks the county needs that maybe aren't coming to the BAC for whatever reason?
Well, I mean, we have some really engaged cyclists who are our volunteers, and I send them a regular volunteer newsletter. So I'd be happy to put a little blurb in there saying that. And there's one person who was very interested in joining the BAC, and not sure why he hasn't come, but I think of him immediately. So I could certainly put something in our volunteer newsletter. I could follow up with you maybe with an email, and we could just
I think that would be. I think that would be good. Yeah, I think that would be good.
And maybe we can involve Phoenix Bikes as well. Maybe Megan has ideas about that.
Yeah, I just wrote in the chat that if there is a specific, like maybe a poll or ask that I can then send and have them distribute to the youth that come into the shop, that's probably the easiest way. I think getting somebody to join a subcommittee might be a little hard for the youth, but if there's sort of a survey or like a prompt that I could send and get their feedback on, that would be great.
You know, I don't know if we've done this. I'm trying to remember if we've done this or not in the past. Have we ever like put a map out there for folks to just mark on? And I'm thinking this could be digitally, or we could put it like put a map out at Phoenix Bikes and
Yeah,
places
yeah,
and
we
say,
could do
hey,
something like that. Yeah.
here's a highlighter. Highlight the route you think is critical that needs to be, you know, improved.
Yeah, I can definitely put something in get them to put something in the shop, like blow up the bike Arlington map and say what areas do you use this color for the areas you currently use and things that you would use if it was better or something. Because we do have a lot of youth that ride to the shop or they take public transportation to get to the shop. That's a major thing for them. So
right.
Yeah, definitely it would have to be something. I don't think it could be an open-ended sort of thing. I think something like that we could capture and definitely get.
Okay.
Yeah.
Dana?
Yeah, as much as this would annoy the county, because, it would be not invented here, we should reach out to the, to Alexandria and Fairfax County. So many, if we look at Custis, many of the trail users on Custis aren't Arlington residents. So we should try to figure out how, whether it's the Fairfax, bike group and ABAC in Arlington and Alexandria, make this as holistic as possible. And maybe they don't get to be full members or whatever we have to do to avoid, getting people, hurting people's feelings. But the reality is, we need to make this more broadly, than just, Arlington residents.
Yeah, I guess that my question would be how we'd go about that. Is that a staff to staff or a committee to committee type reach out?
Well, if we're doing this as a subcommittee, I would say it's committee to committee.
Okay.
I could talk to Casey. I don't know anybody. I'm not tight with anybody in Fairfax, but Kevin might have some ideas.
Steve?
Yeah, thanks. So, we just went through this exercise with the comfort map where we looked at a map and, identified all of that. And there were both positives and negatives to how that played out. But this sounds like a similar exercise, like taking a map and trying to determine where the key aspects, or the key connectors or the key routes are. I think is complementary to or similar to what we've been doing recently with the comfort map. So maybe that's a starting point. I don't know.
No, I agree. It did remind me of that process. And the comfort map's a little bit more documenting existing versus aspiring to what could be. But yeah, I think that there may be a starting place within that comfort map data to get us going. Randy.
I don't know that I found the best thing for us to look at on safe system approach, but back in 2021, when there was a lot of talk about this concept, which has basically died down since. There was a primer produced, Safe Systems Approach for Peds and Bikes, and David Goodman sent that. Remember David Goodman? David Goodman sent that around to the list, and I found it in my email archives, and I have forwarded it to the BAC list. So it is, I believe, the only thing I've seen that really addressed bike ped specifically for that concept. Otherwise, I would recommend the initial link that I sent in the chat list, and also just Google. I mean, you'll find lots and lots of much more recent stuff by Googling than you will from my email archives. But thanks to David Goodman for sending that around anyway. And you should all have it in your email inbox when we leave this meeting.
Yeah, I see that. Okay, any more thoughts? Because so I've managed to do this in a way where I get all the action items, which is no way to run a meeting. So I'm gonna put together goals and draft some in the next few days to a week and send them out. So be looking for that. And maybe working with Megan and maybe Mary, think about how we can reach out to some of the non-BAC folks to get input on a ultimate network map that the BAC would put forward for the transportation future process. So with that, I am done. Cynthia, if you want to take over and maybe bring this to an end.
Thank you so much. So let's just go through a few items of BAC business. In particular, I'm just going to mention some upcoming dates. I think everyone should have received the announcement by now that VDOT will be holding what I believe is the final public information meeting on Route 1, on the Route 1 study. That meeting will be on January 14th, and it's something that we have to sign up to attend, I believe, or it's recommended at least. So whoever is free, please sign up for that meeting on January 14th. And I will mention that Dan Reinhard and the VDOT team will be joining the BAC PAC meeting on Monday, February 3rd. So we will have another opportunity to speak with him and a little more time to review all the documents. I have been corresponding with Mark Schwartz, the county manager, inviting him to come and join us and respond to the issues we raised with him in our letter from this past November, and he said he would be happy to join us. So I am about to write back to him with 3 dates, March 3rd, March 12th, and April 9th. So we'll give him a selection and see whether which of those dates works best for him. And I'm just looking, we've covered most of the other items on the agenda. I know that Elwin wanted to talk about meeting scheduling and annual goals, but maybe we can push that to another meeting since we promised everyone that we'd finish early. But Elwin, do you want to say a few words about what you had in mind?
Yeah, for sure. I'm happy to push this to maybe the March meeting or later. But I just want to give everyone a heads up to start thinking of, what do you anticipate to achieve for this year? This is the very first meeting of the year. We're coming off the holidays and there's so much going on. But from reviewing, similar efforts from our neighbors next door, I really admired how structured they are, looking at things from an annual basis rather than, reviewing possible agenda topics on a month basis. So, in the next few meetings, I'd like to circle back to this to maybe ask for feedback from you guys to see what kind of meeting topics you'd like to hear for this year, goals you'd like to achieve as a committee, maybe any possible ways y'all could help us out in terms of, maybe doing some site visits or maybe looking forward to how to plan ahead for, joint backpack meetings or site visits or maybe future happy hours, things like that. So it's helpful to have this all kind of planned out for the year to help with scheduling and to, give me some help in terms of inviting who should show up to meetings.
I love the idea of having a plan. It's very challenging to do, but we can certainly try. And I think that it would be important to meet with Mark Schwartz before we make that plan, because a lot of what we hope to achieve, at least in my opinion, depends very much on our role, which depends in part on having access to staff members in Department of Environmental Services. And the new DES policy is to not meet with advisory committee members. And that has a big impact on the BAC, on the PAC. And so it would be very helpful to talk with Mark Schwartz, whom we are here to advise, and hear what he has in mind and how he views this and where we're at with the charter and other issues. Our role is very much in flux. And I see that Eric Goodman has had his hand up for the longest time and we've been ignoring it. So Eric, please jump in.
Well, actually, a few things related to this. So, talking about next meeting, and I believe that's going to be a joint meeting, right? And it's going to be focusing on Route 1. But at least what I've heard from our staff member is that there should potentially there's going to be the person who I guess is the supervisor for the project managers, and he may be providing at least an update on projects to us. So that may be at least one step in that direction. I'm not sure it kind of gets us to how we'll be engaged, but I believe that that is supposed to be included in next month's joint meeting. I guess we'll find out a little bit more, but that's my understanding. So that's all I wanted to add. Really talking about next month's meeting.
Great, thanks. Yes, lots to be determined as our role in a relation with DES is very much a question mark, like you say. And we were told in writing that for equity reasons, advisory committee visits will no longer happen and these communications will be essentially truncated, and I don't know exactly what format this will be. So Pam.
Yeah, I want to remind people about the upcoming engagements for CC to DCA. There'll be online engagements starting on the 15th and an open house on the 29th, Wednesday the 29th from 4 to 7. And coming to the open house, which is in our neighborhood, is a great opportunity to actually talk to staff about the project, find out what the VRE station is going to be, find out what the bike facilities are going to be. So if you can at all, please try to come to that.
Wonderful. Thank you for mentioning that. Any other announcements before we close out? All righty. Have a safe week. Be careful out there riding on the snow and the ice. And we'll see you next month.
Bye. Take care.
Bye.
Thanks.
Good night.
Thank
Thank
you. Nice
you.
meeting.
Thank you.
Bye.